You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is October 28th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas, but this particular episode is going to be released officially on the 30th of October for the BlizzCon week, where both Jason and I are traveling down towards BlizzCon. And so we wanted to do an episode of, hey, let's talk about our predictions, our things we're looking forward to, thoughts and plans for BlizzCon itself. And we wanted to be sure we could cover a lot of the bases. So we brought in friend of the show, Multizord. Welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Spencer. Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. And I have heard, I know you are quite the Hearthstone avid player, but you're also someone who has gotten quite a bit into Rumble. So we'll be able to add some more information and thoughts on those two particular titles while we talk about a bit more general topics on today's episode when it comes to BlizzCon and Blizzard games in general.
You bet. I'm a WoW guy too, so I listen to the Starting Zone every week, so I'm up on my stuff.
He's up on
very
his stuff.
Seasoned, and ZTH compatriot as well these days. Multi and I are in the same guild now because of server migration.
It's a small World of Warcraft. Absolutely.
It is, actually, genuinely. It certainly is. But yes, so Jason, how are you doing on this fine Saturday evening?
I'm doing great. I'm back from Japan. I have a computer that works. I survived my twins' birthday party. This is my third podcast in 3 days, so I'm good. Last time we spoke was on Thursday, and that was like the longest we had gone without speaking in forever. And this might be the shortest distance between TSZ records that I can remember. So we're just running the whole gamut here.
We have definitely recorded back-to-back shows before. It has happened when we did that with pre-records. But yes, this has been a whirlwind of you returning to the country and having to do all of the podcasting at the same time.
And they're going to be real tight episode releases because you get the Thursday episode out Thursday night, and then this episode is going to be out by Monday. So they're just, everything's everywhere. But it's great. I mean, it's exciting. This is the time. This is the most exciting time, really. I mean, BlizzCon season is just like for people like us, it's just like a notch below like expansion launch, I think. Yeah. It's like the time to get the most, juiced up about the games and stuff. So there's nothing I'd rather be doing, I guess.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in and kick it off a little bit of conversation around. Well, actually, first and foremost, Multi, do you want to talk a little bit about who you are and how you, found us and whatnot, just so people get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So I have been a just Blizzard games podcaster for several years now. I started actually, if anyone knows me from back then, way back on a show called Lords of the Storm covering HOTS back in the day. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot of HOTS coverage we're going to do tonight because there's not a lot of HOTS going on. They did a patch
recently. That's the thing.
PTR, there's a fresh PTR, man.
There is.
I'm actually vaguely hopeful with the Microsoft acquisition only because there's already been some Phil Spencer verbiage about if we're going to revisit old titles, we're going to do it right. So I don't know, HOTS people, speak up now. Now might be the time to speak up. But anyway, so yeah, it kind of started out there. That's really where I started to get to know you guys and Mick and everybody back in the day. But since then, I've done an Overwatch show. That one's boomed and busted. But currently I'm on a Hearthstone podcast called Hearth Casual with, if you're familiar with Roe or Brian Black, Monica Stone's on that one as well. And so, it's a casual Hearthstone podcast, as by the name. But I play Hearthstone somewhat casually. I'm Legend now. I'm not pushing much harder than that, but you know what I mean.
That's more than just casual. I would say casual folks don't end up getting, I would say, into the platinum area is probably somewhere below there is probably where most casuals tend to live. So I would say that you're doing pretty well. You're at least up on the meta. You're putting together decks. You might be tweaking things yourself to make sure you have the right counters that you want to run. That type of thing is most likely what's happening. Yeah.
It's funny how the goalposts have moved, because it would be impossible to be a casual legend a few years ago. But the way ranked floors and the ranking system works now, it's like it is possible to play what somebody might consider to be casually and get legend if your win rate is like astronomical. But you still got to get a lot of games in. So I don't know, man. I think you should give yourself a little more credit.
Agree.
Okay.
You know, just a little bit. I mean, yeah, like I hit legend twice ever, and I was not playing casually those months.
No, I definitely
I was winning games, but man, I was logging a lot of games.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So you did a Hearthstone podcast for a bit, and then now you've jumped into Rumble. Is there Rumble media that's potentially in the works somewhere along the line?
I have, and potentially, I'm thinking about it. Potentially some like shorter form YouTube stuff, maybe at least to get my feet wet. I had some real life happen. I was going to do it these past couple weeks, but stuff came up so far. But I really do like Rumble. I've actually been in Rumble since November of 2022. I won that. There was a Twitter contest for asking nicely, and I just came up with the cheesiest, like, straight off of Wikipedia answer possible. And then I got the email. So it's like, okay. So I've actually seen some, like, older builds of the game up till now, and I got a lot to say about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, perfect. All right, let's dive into World of Warcraft. All right, let's just start off with the meat of what our show normally covers, so we can have the dessert of all the bonus stuff a little bit more towards the end. And we can roll from WoW into talking a little bit more about. Well, actually, no. Let's not. Let's preempt the WoW with BlizzCon in general, because you've also attended multi. Traveling there and experience there, and then we'll work from that into announcements and talking about what we predict for BlizzCon stuff. So.
It's the first in-person show in 4 years, so I think it's probably Let's talk about a big level view of like what the show looks like this year, because it's kind of a reimagined BlizzCon too. It's a bit of a different vibe than they've done in the past, or we think. So I think it's definitely worth let's take a big overview of the show, and then we can kind of talk about each of the families.
Yeah. So as you said, first BlizzCon in 4 years, and the last one we had was definitely one of the largest we've ever seen. BlizzCon in general obviously started out in the 4 main halls. When they added the arena onto the Anaheim Convention Center, that was something that people got very excited about, that they could actually start using the arena for things. And then, of course, they built the extra wing, this totally separate building that's sort of off of the arena, where they actually ended up throwing in some extra. I guess the last time we were there was Darkmoon Faire was upstairs and the store was down in the basement. And the basement of the actual convention center was like there was like a HOTS area and a StarCraft area and like a whole, like a classic arcade, because all the classic arcade stuff was big back then, was all down there. So it was this, they used like every single square inch that was possible of the convention center in the 2019 one. And this current year is not looking quite the same. They're using all the halls, they are using the arena, and they are using the extra building. The extra building that's sort of just next to the arena is going to be for registration. So that's getting your badges and that sort of thing. And the basement of that is, in fact, where they're keeping the store, which I think is actually a really good use for it. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing the layout for that. The arena is where we're going to have all the panels. So every single panel discussion is going to take place in the actual arena, on the arena stage, which is part of why Blizzard's able to offer free viewing of the entire convention on YouTube, and I presume also on Twitch or wherever else you're able to stream it, where they choose to stream it. So you're able to tune in, and you're able to watch the convention as far as all the panels go from what's taking place in the arena. Inside the individual halls, they've laid them all out, sort of broken them into universes, right? So Hall A, which is the one closest to the arena, is going to be the Diablo universe. It's going to have like the Fat Goose Inn, which is something that they introduced several BlizzCons ago, where basically you could go and have, wine and booze and drinks and whatnot and hang out with your friends. And it's a very Diablo themed space. They're going to have a big board that you can stand in front of and get pictures taken in front of for an Arius, that you can stand there and get all sorts of, glamour shots. That's something that interests you. We're going to have an art exhibit.
Bring your sequin jacket for your glamour shot with an Arius. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, right. And you have, I'm sure they'll have ring lights and all sorts of stuff set up to make you look really good. They did this before. They had like a Wrath of the Lich King throne that you could sit on, one of the, big Arthas thrones with the sword that you could hold. They've done a lot of these sorts of things in the past where people could sort of get those memories sort of cemented in if they wanted to. They're going to have a Herodric library, which is probably the thing that I'm looking forward to the most of the Diablo area. It's just a space where you can go and just read up on all the lore, because there's just so much of it. And I imagine the feeling of it's going to be, it's something you can't really describe unless you attend the convention. The feel of the space, you really do walk into these universes. You're aware that you're inside a large convention. It is loud. There are tons of people around. The ceilings are very high. It is an echoey space. You can hear what's happening one hall over. Like, that is the world that is a convention. However, the visuals and the feel of the space that you're in can change based off of walking into some of the exhibits that they've put together, and they put a lot of effort into them. So the library to me is something pretty high on my list to go in and check out as far as the Diablo space goes. Now, did one of you guys want to jump in about Diablo space stuff and walk around the hall?
Yeah, I think Diablo may have been like the impetus for sort of what they're trying to do at the show this year, because way before we had any details about it, various people inside Blizzard were saying, yeah, we're going to have like a more experiential BlizzCon next time.
Yeah.
And Diablo was kind of the first thing that they sort of built out the inn and everything a few years back. I guess it was back when like Immortal, right? In 2018, the infamous 2018 BlizzCon. But they had that really cool, like super designed and propped out Diablo space, which was a bit different than what they usually do with the floor. And so that, obviously the Darkmoon Faire too, which you mentioned, was like, that was one of the more like in-universe type of parts of the show floor. And then most of the halls were just like, here's some folding chairs and here's some folding tables and here's a bunch of PCs and demo units and here's a stage over here. And like, that's fine. But I think going in the direction of, we want to have cool props and cool in-universe stuff all over the con, that sounds awesome. And I think when, the level that we've seen that at previous shows, it was really good. So if that's indicative of like what most of the floor is going to be like, then that would be awesome. So
yeah,
we'll see how it looks. I mean, I'm excited. I mean, Diablo has a lot of ground to cover because they do have like 4 games. There are 4 Diablo games that still exist and are supported in some capacity. So
I would say there's 3 games currently that are like major player-based games, right? Diablo 4, Diablo Immortal, and Diablo 2 are all Diablo 2 Remastered. They did are all still very alive games inside this franchise. So
yeah, I mean, D3 did just get a fresh season. It is the last season, and so maybe there'll be some conversation about what does post new content Diablo 3 ongoing support, legacy support, whatever look like. So there's not a lot of Diablo stuff on main stage, which is really weird, or at least it's absent from the schedule currently. So we'll get more into that, I'm sure.
It's possible there's some sleight of hand there, maybe. I'm not sure. But I will. The only thing I have to say about Hall A is, if you guys don't get just super hopped up on Mountain Dew and come out of there with Hell's Ink flash tattoos and spots you don't want them to be, regret, then you didn't do BlizzCon 2023 right. That's all I'm saying.
Yes,
somebody's gonna do that. It's not going to be me. I don't know if I like Diablo enough to get tattoos of it. I have tattoos, and I like Diablo, but if I was going to get a Diablo tattoo, I wouldn't get like flash off the wall at BlizzCon.
I
would not be doing that. I mean, no disrespect to anybody that wants to do that. Like, if that's a cool memento of your trip, like, I get that element of it. I think it's cool that they're doing it there, because they did that various, stage tour of, tattoo parlors and stuff in all over the U.S. and in different countries and stuff. And obviously not everybody got to do that, so that's a cool thing to put on the show floor for sure, but you won't find me in that line.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Their own little tattoo parlor there is actually kind of a neat thing, and that all started as part of a promotion that they were put together about getting beta for Diablo 4. If you were someone who went to one of the cities that their traveling tattoo space was going to, and you got one of those tattoos, you were given an early access to Diablo 4 beta because you'd proven your commitment, and sacrifice flesh is the term that they had sort of used for it to be able to get your beta pass to Diablo 4. So I thought that was a very clever but also pretty extreme marketing choice that they did. So I thought that was neat that they chose to do that.
Diablo does just all kinds of wild stuff. There's a blood drive thing going on right now to win a PC that you actually donate blood if you're in the States, and they need to make 666 quarts of it and all this stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Like, it's all thematic and just crazy. So I mean, if you're in that community at all, they've always got something going on for sure.
Yeah. All right, Hall B is our Overwatch hall. This is the hall where we're going to have the World Cup of Esports competition for Overwatch, and as well as the Overwatch World Cup Proving Grounds are all taking place inside this space. So this is most likely laid out as a big arena, which we've seen before inside of a hall for Overwatch. Although it is the Worlds ones, this won't be the usual teams that we see competing. This will be teams broken up based off of their nationality and competing against each other. So if you're an Overwatch fan, this is going to be, hey, you can take pictures in front of statues and things like that, but primarily this will be a let's go watch the competition that's taking place in this arena inside Hall B. As far as the Hall C goes, this is the Overwatch 2 Hall is the way they sort of referred to it, and this is where you actually have a little bit more of an Overwatch experience. So yes, Overwatch is getting 2 halls. One of them is just basically going to be an esports competition hall. The other one is going to be primarily a hall for a lounge, a demo space, the operations center, as they call it, and the HTC Overwatch experience. So this is going to be a lot more of the let's get into the world, let's potentially meet voice actors, let's meet up with people who are doing the demos for the actual new releases of the game that are coming out. It's your Overwatch version of Hall A, basically, is what you're going to be getting for Hall C for Overwatch. So if that is your jam, if that's your game, I haven't dove into Overwatch in about 3 months. I've sort of left the game alone for a period of time. But I was an avid player for a long time. Overwatch 2 has not been something that my group of friends who I used to play Overwatch with have really transitioned to. They moved away from it. It just wasn't their cup of tea. They didn't like the direction they were going with it. So it sort of fell off for me. I'm just putting it out there. So I'm curious to see what their plans are going forward, to see if they, undoubtedly they've recognized this fall off and they're going to want to do something about it. So hopefully they have some plans, and maybe this is where we'll hear a lot of upcoming thoughts and ideas about what they could do with Overwatch at a Hall C.
I've got some thoughts there, and I'll save it for when we talk about Overwatch, perhaps. But yeah. I've got some potential thoughts about what if there's more going on in that hall?
Yeah.
Is this a potential sleight of hand place?
Could be.
Could there be not a Watchpoint Gibraltar immersion thing? Who knows?
Yeah.
But we'll get to it.
Yeah. And then Hall D is our World of Warcraft, quite literal hall. Everything Warcraft related lives in Hall D. Hall D is by far the largest hall. It is almost the size of 2 of these halls combined. It's very close to it in square footage. We have on the far side of that hall is where the Darkmoon Faire is going to live. And so it's going to have a huge space that's laid out for Darkmoon Faire, which I love because they often have basically fireside chats where you can sort of go and sit down and listen to a developer or someone tell stories is sort of the concept of it. It's like a story time area. Which is a lot of fun. They have their gambling aspect of it where you can get loot boxes and, guess what's in it, sort of try and get the objects you want, the plushes and whatnot that you want out of these loot boxes. There's lots of different things you can get out of them. They have those little egg machines where you put coins into them and turn them and you get little eggs you can open that have more prizes in them and things in them. So they have all that kind of stuff. They often have a lot of different games you can play. They have a lot of really fun architectural elements that you can, hang out around and take pictures in. And Darkmoon Faire is always a good time, I think I mentioned. I really liked what they did in 2019 with it, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they choose to do with it over in Hall D this year.
Darkmoon Faire is it traditionally has been the coolest place to hang out on the floor. If you want to hang out somewhere, it was Darkmoon Faire. So we'll see. I mean, I think part of the idea is to turn the whole floor into that, but which maybe diminishes the coolness of Darkmoon Faire, but probably not. I don't know if they're going to do the smaller scale chats and panels and demos and stuff they used to do there. That was always my favorite part, when there'd be a little art demo or something, or some really cozier kind of chat in a smaller area with a developer or something. They've done awesome stuff with that space at previous shows. I don't have a feel for what it's going to look like this year, but yeah. I just got back from Japan, and there are capsule toy machines, gashapon machines, everywhere, just rows of them all over the place. And so, there's not as many at the Darkmoon Faire, but it's a little bit of that.
It is.
But there is exclusive stuff that you can only get out of those machines, which I've never bought any of them because my collector brain kicks in and it's like, well, I'll never be able to get all of them because this is my only shot to get it. I can't afford to just keep buying them all. So like, I'm just not going to start. But they have really cool stuff there. And as also like the pin trading and, the enamel pin sets and all that. And there's like exclusive plushies that they sell there, like baby moonkins and stuff. And yeah, it's always a big highlight for me traditionally. I think I expect it to be a bit different this year, but I hope it's still cool.
Yeah, me too. All right, Warcraft Rumble lives next to Hall D. Next to Darkmoon Faire inside of Hall D. And Hearthstone lives next to that. And then a space that includes basically the same size as both Rumble and Hearthstone is the World of Warcraft space. So they've sort of broken up Hall D into 4 sections. World of Warcraft has the bulk of that, followed by Darkmoon Faire, and then Hearthstone, and then Rumble has the smallest space of that. However, it is going to be, I imagine, a overall massively themed hall for the general world of Azeroth and Dragonflight and everything around. So I'm really looking forward to walking into the space because it feels neat to sort of be like, yes, we're just going to divide this up by universe. So this is where this universe is going to live, and anyone who knows anything about this universe will be in this hall. And that's kind of a neat concept to me because there are a lot of people I know who play Hearthstone who don't know a lot about World of Warcraft. And to mingle those people together is interesting because the people who play Hearthstone know a lot of the characters, sometimes more characters than the people who play World of Warcraft, but don't know anything about them. And so you end up having these interesting conversations, and I've had this before with folks, where someone's talking about a particular, why does it make sense? Why does this card make sense that it does this thing? And it actually does, in lore, make sense that this card would do this thing because this is what the history is of that particular character or this particular action or spell or whatever it was that card does. So I like the idea of merging these all together. And I think Warcraft Rumble just fits into that world perfectly as well. And Jason and I, just on our most recent episode, were chatting a lot about how I would love if there was a way to emulate Hearthstone or Rumble inside of World of Warcraft, to basically be able to go to a tavern and sit down at a table, and someone else goes to the tavern and sits down at the table across from you, and it actually starts playing the game. And what was really funny was I was playing a game last night, actually, called Outlast Trials, which is a spooky game, with some friends, one of which is Sloot, friend of the show. And one of the things you can do in the lobbies there when you're hanging around is sit down at tables and do arm wrestling or play chess, is what you can do in the lobbies. And so they have the games existing within their game. So when you're waiting for, your friends to get ready or a cue to pop or whatever it was, you can sit down and play another game. And so I just really liked that concept that it is possible to do. It is weird technology to do it. But I think it would be neat to see these essentially board games that exist within the World of Warcraft be something that you could actually engage in within the game and have some fun with. So putting them all together in the same hall makes sense.
The Rumble machine is in Azeroth right now.
I know.
You can go to the Valdrakken Inn or Orgrimmar or Stormwind. So just let us use it. I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's sort of how I feel about it.
I also feel like Rumble is sort of the thing that bridges the gap between WoW and Hearthstone. Like, Rumble is like the single player experience that I wish Hearthstone could have ever figured out how to present me in a lot of weird ways.
Okay.
It isn't Hearthstone. Like, it has nothing to do with Hearthstone. But it takes like the vanilla WoW, zone and questing experience and kind of condenses it into this Clash of Clans but then it uses like a rock, paper, scissors thing that is like a lot of games have that kind of concept, but it has sort of like, you have to build your team out and you have restrictions on how much stuff you can put in your team. And you have to weigh economy, and economy is very important. So it has like all the elements of, strategy games and card games and stuff that we're familiar with from playing Blizzard games. So I'm super stoked on Rumble. Like, I play it every day, and I've been having a great time with it. And we got some exciting news about season 1 last night. And I think it's going to take people by surprise. I hope that people give it a shot. I know that mobile games are scary for a lot of reasons, and rightfully so, right? The market is a wasteland, but Rumble's a legit Warcraft game. Like, it is absolutely a new Warcraft game.
Yep.
And yes, it's free to play, and yes, that means they want to sell you stuff in client, but you can spend as much time in Rumble as you want without spending a dime.
Yep.
And the game, the acquisition is not acquiring your minis is relatively straightforward. They give you enough gold and enough opportunities from playing to basically round out your whole army. And then the long term is grinding up your minis by playing the game and earning XP, which you can short circuit with money. So if you want to just grind up and play the game, then it's right there for you. So I think people should. I hope that people are looking forward to it. I know like a mobile game just means a lot of people will immediately dismiss it, and that's fine. But I'm almost 42 years old. I have a lot of stuff going on, and I have a lot of responsibilities. And if I can get in a couple rounds of Rumble while I'm waiting for the kids' bus to show up at the bus stop, like that's a huge win for me. Like I need something like that in my rotation. And so obviously. Next weekend is Rumble's big,
and we'll chat more about launch, Rumble. So. We'll chat more about Rumble later in the show. But yes, it fits in this universe. I
think all this stuff is under John Haidt's purview, right? He's like the Warcraft big boss, and so all these games are now like under like everybody who is in charge of these games reports to him, basically. And I think it's kind of cool that they're kind of unifying Warcraft as a concept across these different games. It's funny because they dropped Heroes of Warcraft from Hearthstone's title, and then years later they like bring it in the silo with World of Warcraft and other Warcraft stuff. It's kind of weird how that worked out, but I think it's appropriate. It's if you like one game in this family, you'll probably like other ones.
Yeah.
So one other nice thing I was just going to throw in super quick about the Hall here is just that the fact that Rumble doesn't really have that much of a community yet, because obviously the game hasn't been globally released yet, but the fact that they're sandwiching in there with the rest of essentially Azeroth, to y'all's point, kind of lets that community form right there. Like I think you will see people from Hearthstone WoW
100%
come over from Darkmoon Fair even and kind of just make that right then and there. So that'll be super cool.
Yeah, they're going to have a photo booth. They're going to have a playable demo area for it. And then they're going to have essentially Rumble Mania, which is going to be an esports event that'll take place there as a show match kind of idea that's going to take place. So that's something to look forward to as far as the Rumble space goes. The Hearthstone space has sort of an artist nook where you're going to have artists that you can stop in and talk to and meet and greet. There's a duel a dev where they've done this for a number of years now with BlizzCon, where you can go in and actually do a duel against a developer. And then, of course, there's the Hearthstone demo space and the Warcraft Tavern, which is the tavern where you can actually go and hang out, similar to the Fat Goose Inn that they have over in Hall A for Diablo. World of Warcraft. All right, World of Warcraft, you got the WoW Corridor of Time, which is sort of like here's all the milestones that have taken place with World of Warcraft space. You can go and hang out and check out all of the lore and background and history of the game, which is very neat. They have a WoW demo space. They have the WoW Guild Clash, where essentially you can watch different guilds go up against each other in head-to-head fights when it comes to boss encounters, mythic plus races, that kind of thing is going to be taking place inside this hall. And then they have the Champions Rest, where you can actually also hang out with folks as well. So yeah, they've definitely put together a pretty good show with the space that they've chosen to grab. Upstairs on level 3, they have the Portal Pass Lounge, and there's a theater up there as well. And so the theater, the last time they did a theater like this was where you could go and watch the World of Warcraft movie demo. The trailer that was coming out was the last time they did a theater like this. I don't know if it's going to be a space that you have access to outside of Portal Pass, or whether or not you only Portal Pass people can have access to the space. But I would imagine it's a theater that's just playing cinematics from their games on loops, and you can go and watch all the different cinematics and things that are taking place there. That would be my best guess. All right, so...
Yeah, I feel like the lounge and theater is probably a combined space where it's like, okay, Portal Pass holders, you can come chill here, and here's the stuff that you have access to, and here's all the new cinematics and stuff we've released, and we're just going to play that all day.
Could be, yeah, absolutely. All right, the convention center itself is located on Convention Way inside Anaheim, California, so it's this nice long street that leads all the way up to the convention center, which I'm sure everyone's seen photos of from the balconies of the convention center with tens of thousands of people standing in that square waiting to get in. They have changed up a lot of access to the convention and whatnot, sort of the way that's going to work as far as creating lines and having to be less of a rush. And a lot of that also came along with them putting together the BlizzCon Arena as their main stage for releasing all the panels. People will no longer be essentially running to Hall D to try and get their best seats possible for the main stage presentation, which was a almost staple of the convention to that point, which was always the strangest feeling in the world, to be lined up at 6:30 or 7 a.m. waiting to get in at, them opening the doors at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then sit in your chair for an hour and a half until the convention actually starts and they start doing announcements. So yeah, it's going to be nice to actually have it laid out, I think, arena-wise, for folks who just want to get in and go to the Rumble area or go to the Warcraft area or go to the Overwatch arena or whatever it was. You won't be in as large of a crowd, I don't think, as you were previously. I think there'll be a lot more people trying to get to the BlizzCon arena and trying to get over that space. There'll be people who want to go to the store right away and just wait in line to get the new stuff that's coming out before it sells out, because a lot of stuff sells out at the store every year. And I'm sure there's a lot of people excited to get to the demo stations as fast as possible. So I'm curious as to what the layout's going to look like with folks trying to get into the convention center this year from what we're used to. But the other thing that happens inside that main area is food trucks. And a lot of people really like all the food trucks that are laid out and spaced out in that area. You got the Hilton on one side and the Marriott on the other. That's where the evening parties and gatherings tend to happen. A lot of developers tend to hang out in those spaces. You can always bump into folks there that are they're part of community or are actually developers of the game, or are, guys like us who create content. Content creators end up in those spaces a lot too. So the convention itself is a lot of fun. It's expensive. It's a little cost prohibitive, but it's a lot of fun for those who can actually attend and go. And I definitely think that if folks are looking for a way to meet up with a lot of people from your tribe, from your way of being, you're probably going to meet them at BlizzCon. And that's one of the greatest things about the convention, is the folks who are there, who attend the convention itself.
Yep. And I will say the cost is prohibitive for me this year, full disclosure. But as a representative of the home team, those of us watching at home, I am actually kind of excited that all of the streams are going to be coming out of the arena, because I have my schedule now. I don't have to plug myself into the matrix to try to catch all the little things that I might possibly want to catch from every single different game that I follow. And so if I have one concern with that, though, it's that, will the home audience really get the same? Obviously, we can't have the same feel of going into the halls, but I'm worried that I'll lose too much flavor about what is going on in those halls, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless I'm just following social medias and that kind of thing.
No, it's a great point you're making, because you are going to be dealing with what they used to have is essentially this command center that was in the center of is in the middle of the convention center, where they had, must have been 40 or 50 monitors, all with different cameras. Because every single hall had a stage. Every stage had two to three cameras on it. You had roaming cameras with people walking around with them. So they could really make people feel like they were inside of that space. And, as you were talking about plugging yourself into the Matrix, you'd have each of those halls would have panels happening or esports happening at the same time. And so you had a huge amount of content that was produced over those 2 days. And it was a large amount to try and digest. In some cases, you'd have a panel happening in one hall with esports happening at the back of that hall. It was very, very crammed with the amount of stuff that was going on that they were recording and capturing. So yes, I think the main reason why they're able to offer the schedule ahead of time, like you said, the way that they are, and a free online streaming experience for folks who want to watch from at home, is because they moved it into the arena. I think the cost of having to film every hall the way that they were was exorbitant to be able to cover this convention the way they were covering it. So I do think that there may be some promotional stuff of people that they release on YouTube, something of the sort of a camera guy walking through the Diablo area and showing all the Diablo space, and then putting that up as a 5-minute or a 7-minute video with some spooky music in the background or something like that, so people can sort of get a feel for what the convention was like. But I don't think they're going to be, all right, we're going to go over to the, so-and-so in Hall C and see what's going on in Hall C. And then you're able to check in on Hall C and see everyone there and all the stuff in the background. I don't think they're going to be doing that. So it'll be an interesting thing to see how it all runs. But I think in the end, it is going to be more positive for the people at home, because I think you're just going to get a better viewing experience than you were previously. It just means that we're getting less content is really what it comes down to, right? You only have one stage to present things on. So we know that we're going to have the opening ceremonies at 11 a.m. on November 3rd. We're going to have a WoW What's Next panel. Then we're going to have a Overwatch 2 deep dive, and then a WoW Classic What's Next, and then a Hearthstone What's Next, and then essentially Warcraft Rumblings, which I assume is stuff about Warcraft Rumble. And then, we move on to the stuff that's happening on November 4th, which is, on that stage, we're going to have a WoW deep dive, and then an Overwatch 2 What's Next, and a Diablo 4 campfire chat, which is basically what's next in Diablo 4, and then a community night with the actual community stage with all the costumes and whatnot. And then they have a performance taking place at 6:15 on Saturday, and that'll be it. That's what we're going to see off of that main stage. So those are all the panels you're going to see off that main stage. We do know that there are more things happening, obviously, and I imagine there will be some streams or something of the sort like that you can tune into. For things like the Mythic the 10.2 Mythic Plus showcase that's going to take place, the Mythic Dungeon final is going to take place, the Arena finals are going to take place. I imagine these will all be separate streams, but and probably on the main, like on the Warcraft channel is probably where all this stuff is going to live that you're going to be able to tune into. But just in general, a lot less overall for you to actually digest and check in on. So, yeah. Man, let's talk Warcraft because I've just started into it there. So are you guys, WoW, what's next, right? What do you guys think is going to be in the what's next panel when it comes? Let's dig into WoW prediction stuff.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot. We've been told to expect a lot. Let's preface it with that, I guess. We have been told that there's the most news for Warcraft and for WoW, which is kind of not really unexpected considering you have at the moment 3 versions of WoW running concurrently, and there would be no BlizzCon without World of Warcraft. It is for whatever new hotness game comes out or whatever's happening. It's still kind of the crown jewel of the company, I feel like. I'm biased a little bit, but it's the thing that keeps everything running. When other stuff isn't working or it's not ready or whatever, there are always people who want to play WoW in some capacity. We're in a bit of a weird spot this year because 10.2 is coming out right after BlizzCon, right? Yep. And we did get the official patch notes for Guardians of the Dream Thursday, so we know everything that's coming, and there's a lot of stuff to do. It's very exciting. But also some other kind of late breaking news that we didn't discuss on Thursday was that 10.2.5 has already appeared on Blizzard's CDN, an encrypted vendor build. Wowhead can't crack into it, but it exists. So we know that the release cadence is going to stay fast, at least for the next .5. I would expect that we're going to hear quite a bit about whatever 10.2.5 contains. I think they'll probably give us a full preview of it and stuff at the show. I'm expecting BFA time walking. It should be time for BFA to be in the time walking rotation. And I mean, the .5 patches, they've done a lot of stuff with this expansion, I think. There's no real formula for them at this point because they've used them in a lot of different ways. But we're also going to get final confirmation as to what is the future of Dragonflight. Is 10.2.7 the end of Dragonflight? Is there going to be a 10.3? Is there going to be, if there is no 10.3, is there going to be a season 4 fated type season? What is the second and final year of Dragonflight looking like? And then I have no reason not to think that they're going to show us a new expansion. It's an odd year BlizzCon. We have a live expansion that's about a year old. I am fully expecting to see an expansion reveal, as we've seen every other year forever. It's leak season. There's a lot of stuff floating around out there, and some of it seems more plausible than other stuff. There was some blurry photos of a laptop that were all over the internet the other day. I do think, you keep hearing the Storm Dwarf stuff and all that, Avaloran, and, it seems to be that's the leak, quote unquote. I mean, you can call anything a leak if you want to, but it's that's the stuff that seems to be picking up the most momentum is oh yeah, that's what's happening. Which if the leak stuff that came out the other day is real, I thought it looked really cool. So I wouldn't be too sad about it. I think dwarves in general haven't gotten enough love in WoW over the years. And if we're going in more in that kind of direction and that aesthetic for this upcoming expansion, I'd be excited. I mean, one thing I've been saying is that like the thread that I want to see get pulled next the most is the Titan angle. The Titans obviously undergird a lot of Dragonflight. You can't separate Warcraft dragons from Titans.
Yeah.
Right? Like they are creatures of the Titans. And we're seeing the whole tier storyline and everything, and I that's the thing I kind of want to see be front and center next time, I guess. And you have the reborn Titan Pantheon and Illidan and Sargeras hanging out there from Legion, and Legion was years ago now. It might be a little early to revisit that whole thing, but I'm always a little ahead because 4 years ago I really wanted a dragon expansion when we got Shadowlands. So, I might be a little ahead of the curve on that one, but I mean, and I've been on a bunch of podcasts talking about BlizzCon stuff this month, but so I don't want to repeat myself too much if you've listened to those shows, but like I'm pretty much up for anything. I think there are so many cool threads out there in the WoW universe. There's so many angles that you could approach stuff from. You could go totally out of left field with a new concept and a new story, and I'd be into it. The only stuff I don't want to see is like the time travel, alternate pocket dimension thing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want that again. I don't want to go to the afterlife, right? I don't want that kind of supernatural stuff. Like, let's try to keep it like in universe as much as we can. And I don't want the faction conflict to ever reignite to the level that we used to have it prior to BFA. Like, let's just tamp all that stuff down. We don't need that anymore. Where it's a different era of the game and the storytelling. So take me on an adventure. I want to go discover some different concepts and get involved in different conflicts, have different enemies. You know what I mean? That's I'm along for the ride as long as we go in that direction. So I don't think there's anything outside of those kind of concepts, the like alternate universe thing or the faction conflict, where I would kind of groan. I believe in the creative team around World of Warcraft, and I just want to see them, flex their muscles and do something cool. And if it's primal dwarves and this, these kind of like mountainous areas and we're kind of going in that direction to start, if that's the intro, I'm all the way in for that. I think we could certainly use a little bit of that aesthetic.
Well, and I think one other important thing is that like whatever they announce here is what we're still going to be playing in and celebrating when the 20th anniversary of WoW rolls around next year, the 30th anniversary of the IP. So like, what are like Metz and team going to do to just even tee that up? Could we maybe get a roadmap of the year, including as late as November 2024? I'm not sure. But
they've set the precedent. We need roadmaps now.
Yeah. Oh, the roadmaps have been so helpful for sure. So
yeah. Well, that's pretty exciting as far as what we're picturing is coming next. I'm with you, Jason. I think very much we'll lean into the Titans. I think they've been setting up that pretty well with a lot of the storyline that we've been seeing inside of Dragonflight. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next as far as that goes. There have been some leaks and stuff like blurry monitors. Is any of this stuff you guys want to lend some credence and time to, or would you rather wait the week and then we can actually just talk about what's happening for sure?
I'll only say, I mean, obviously if you're not a spoilery person, don't check it out just in case. But if there's any credence to be lent, I think it's that, WoW did actually tweet out some images of some of the decor that's going to be in the hall.
Yeah.
Some new stuff, these like almost like brass looking rings that have this light blue kind of runes on them essentially. And some of that checked out. So I don't know. It's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly haven't looked at too much of the stuff that was like, oh, check out these new expansion leaks. I usually like avoid that stuff. But,
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
the other day, like, I mean, Wowhead just posted one. It was Thursday, I guess, and like I just couldn't resist. We're too close now, and when it comes up on my Wowhead RSS reader, it's like, all right, I'm gonna look, and what they showed off, like it there's like screenshots and there's like a web page kind of mock up, or maybe it's the actual web page that's going to go up next Friday. I really dig it. Like, if this is what it is, I'm in for it. It's like this mountainous forest and this like desert plateau kind of thing, and then we're talking like dwarves front and center, but it's like a different kind of dwarf species or like offshoot family that we haven't seen before in a new dwarven region and stuff. Like, if this is what we're looking at, like I can't even be a little bit mad about that creative direction. I'm way into that. And I feel like it's something that's been a little bit, I don't know, like downplayed over the years, you know? Dwarves have never, like outside of Magni being in your ear all throughout BFA, but he was on some whole other thing anyway. It's not like he was, you know, he was sort of in his own little pocket of the story. He happened to be a dwarf, and, you know, kind of what happened to him was because of his heritage and everything, but it wasn't really a story about like the dwarves as a people or their relationship with the Titans or anything like that. And I mean, if you're talking about creatures of the Titans, the earthen certainly apply, and that includes like dwarves and gnomes and Vrykul and everything else that was affected by the Curse of Flash. I mean, that's, you know, this is real baseline, like bedrock WoW stuff. So I'm all the way in for that if that's the direction I ended up going in. So I don't know. I'm not somebody I'm not on like Reddit and MMO champ forums and stuff, and trying to, you know, trawling for leaks, because most of that stuff is wrong anyway. It's people just trying to get clicks and having a chuckle about it, and that's cool. I mean, that's part of the fun too, I guess. It is fun for people, but that I don't engage with that stuff really. But I couldn't hold off on that Wowhead post, and I was like, yeah, dude, bring it on. Let's go do that. Remember when Shadowlands leaked in 2018?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, or 2019. It was 2019. And it was like that shot of Bolvar having his color changed in the opening cinematic. And I'm like, well, that's mocked up because his helmet's the wrong color. Yeah. So that can't
right, totally.
Like, and I don't want to go to Shadowlands, and we don't need to do this.
Yeah.
And then it became obvious that it was real. And then, then we saw the cinematic on Friday, and, Bolvar's color changed, and I was like, oh man.
That's the kind of thing I'm worried about leading up till Friday. Like, is there going to be something else that drops? Because I believe, if I recall correctly, that was just someone pulling off art assets from a printer and posting it. So
yeah, I mean, once they start really getting stuff decked out, and once they start doing rehearsal for the show next week, people are going to be in the halls. There's going to be stuff on the screens, and that's kind of how that ends up going. But I mean, I guess I would say, like, for Dragonflight, nobody sniffed anything really, right? Because I mean, stuff ended up like on the website early, which ended up getting out, and that's Blizzard either seeding that intentionally or one of their classic oopsies. But you didn't see those kind of leaks for Dragonflight because there was no BlizzCon and there was no, big event. It was all online, and then they did, they kept it more close to the vest. When you have this kind of event, I guess it's harder to avoid this stuff because you need to prepare materials, right? Like, you have attendees and you have press, you have investors, like, you need stuff. So you have more vectors where stuff's going to get out. But yeah, that Shadowlands leak was, my gut punch reaction was, no, I don't want this. I want something else. This whatever this expansion is called, I mean, I haven't seen like a title leak potentially or whatever, but if Avalorn's a new content and this is the direction we're going in with these kind of, more primal powered dwarves or whatever, it's a 180 reaction for me from the Shadowlands leak. I'll say that much.
Yes. Yeah. It's really going to be a much cooler place to explore. All right. So I feel like we've covered a lot of the World of Warcraft stuff as far as our thoughts and where we think that's going to go. But let's talk a little bit about Hearthstone, because that's also Multi's world. So,
well, wait, hold on. We do have.
Oh, there's more WoW. Oh yeah.
You want to do classic stuff first? Okay. I was going to say classic stuff till later, but you want to jam all the WoW into one area?
I think we should go. I think we should go WoW top to bottom.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sounds good.
Okay so I guess yes. Let's start with classic. With what I guess. What's next as far as Cataclysm potential, classic Cataclysm, and what we think is going to happen with that?
I think it's pretty much a slam dunk that they're going to announce Cataclysm Classic. A survey came out a while back, and if they're surveying people about a product, then they're probably already releasing it, and maybe they'll just tweak stuff based on the survey. Like, they're not going to just scuttle it because of if people said they weren't interested in it or whatever. I don't think, but I do think that if you release Cataclysm Classic, that you have to do Wrath Era servers. You can't just overwrite 3.x with 4.x and go, here you go, please subscribe. I think people want to live in Wrath of the Lich King era and be able to do that. So I fully expect that, yes, it splinters off the player base that much more, but I don't know how much that matters at this point. Like, WoW needs whatever services it can provide for the sub to get people in the door, I honestly feel like. So if you split the player base up, who cares as long as people are playing? That's kind of my take on it. Well, initially when it was like, oh, they're going to put vanilla servers back in, like, oh, that's going to fracture the player base so bad that like, how is anything going to be able to exist in that ecosystem? And like, it was fine. It was actually more than fine. There I wouldn't say there are no concerns about that, but you can also manage it with like release schedules and stuff like that. I know people who play both games with regularity at endgame, and they just kind of manage, okay, like this raid is coming out. Sometimes there's overlaps, but they do what they do. There's also a new Deathwing shirt on the Blizzard, the BlizzCon gear store.
Really?
So
yeah.
So
that's
I
kind
think,
of
like,
a giveaway on that one.
Yeah, like I think there's a reason why they're doing a new Deathwing shirt, and I think it's Cataclysm Classic, which I'm not really that stoked about. All the other versions of Classic, I was like, you know what, I'll get in there and check it out, and I'll level up, and I'll revisit that because that sounds like fun. Because you can't do that. Cataclysm's the point where, to me, it's like, I don't really feel like I want to revisit that. I'm not eager to hop in there and level through Mount Hyjal. Cataclysm does not feel like classic WoW to me. I feel like the classic era of the game ended with Wrath of the Lich King, and that's why it makes sense to leave it there. But I know they want to. They make money off of Classic, and people subscribe to the game to play Classic servers. So I get why they want to keep moving it forward. And you also have like progression raiders and stuff like that who want the content to repeat. But like I think Cataclysm is the point where you hit diminishing returns hard, because there's just not there's not enough nostalgia and love for Cataclysm out there, and it also, the game starts changing up way too much by the end of Cataclysm. You have Raid Finder, you have Transmog by the end of Cataclysm, right? And I think these are the kinds of things that your core classic audience really doesn't want in their WoW. And I don't think the retail audience is too eager to revisit Cataclysm. Mists of Pandaria, maybe. I hear a lot of...
You're digging into my point. My point would be very much, I would skip Cataclysm entirely, and I would just dive straight to Mists of Pandaria. I think Mists of Pandaria is an expansion that you could put out that people would love. The thing about classic Cataclysm is it's where you got the revamped of the old zones. It's where you spent a lot of time in those old zones that we essentially had already been in for a while, if you're someone who's been doing classic era stuff. So I don't feel like there's enough new things to sort of explore and experience compared to something like going to Pandaria. Pandaria is a totally different world to experience. It has so many things for so many different types of players. I don't know. There's a strong pull for me to just go back to that architecture, go back to that different look and feel, and the gardening, and the whole thing to me was great. The raids were great. Yes, there were good Cata raids too, but I think the Pandaria raids were substantially better in my opinion. So I that's where I would go. I would just skip Cata entirely. I would just skip it.
So I'm going to be the guy on the show who says skip Cata entirely, skip Mop, skip it all.
Oh boy.
And do Classic Plus instead.
Classic
Absolutely.
Plus. Okay.
Because for me, and let me ask you guys honestly, would you be more apt to jump on a Classic Plus than any of those other things? Like, would it cause you to pull more time away from retail? Just out of sheer hype to have new stuff.
Unequivocally, yes. Over Cataclysm, certainly. Over Mist, like I loved parts of Mist, and I like Mist overall as an expansion, but I would have no interest in really revisiting it as like a thing I was going to level and progress through.
Really?
So
gotcha.
Yeah, Classic Plus. I think. Well, the Classic Plus is the attractive thing about it. The tantalizing thing about it is that it means something different to everybody that hears that. Right. And I did an episode of Countdown to Classic with Josh Corbett last night, and we talked about Classic Plus extensively and what it could be and what it would mean and what would it be if it was like this, and would you play it if it was like that, and what if they did this, or would the players accept this or that or the other thing. And I think this is why, like, the Classic community, that core Classic player, and even some players who like kind of have their finger on the pulse but aren't as into Classic, have just been kind of whipped into a frenzy over this idea. I mean, Chris Metzen is back. Chris Metzen left the WoW creative director chair, at the close of Wrath of the Lich King, or like after Wrath of the Lich King shipped. So what does this potentially mean? You would think that something like new content for an older game would be faster to spin up for Chris to get involved with than like a new retail expansion that's already a year or two down the track and is about to ship. It's like Chris is not steering the ship for whatever the next expansion is, right? He hasn't been back long enough. The wheels were already in motion before he came back, and now to be back as the EVP. But if they were going to make new quest lines, put new dungeons or something in Vanilla WoW, in a Classic Plus server, mix up something with the gameplay or systems, this might be a thing that like Chris could be involved in building out the narrative stuff and the creative direction of it. And you have a dedicated Classic development team, right? You have to think that it's easier to stand up 4.x servers than it was to rebuild 1.x servers. They by 2010 they must have had much better data archiving for WoW patches and builds and stuff, right? So I'm not saying it doesn't take any work to put out Cataclysm Classic, but it doesn't take the kind of development work that like building new content does, or rebuilding vanilla WoW servers that they openly said like we didn't have the data for this anymore.
Right.
They actually worked with like people who had like old versions of the clients on their machines to like rebuild the servers from reference clients. So, I gotta hope that to do Cataclysm or like more modern expansions, it doesn't take that much work. But I mean, I haven't played Classic much over the years. I'm not much of a Classic WoW player, but I do dip a toe every now and then. And the recent updates to retail have really made me want to play some kind of modernized version of vanilla WoW. We got all the new tech in the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor zones with the recent patch. The draw distance, the fog and lighting, those zones are absolutely gorgeous. You have obviously the modern graphics in the game are very nice. I got kind of roasted for this on Josh's show last night, but like I would love a version of like vanilla WoW that has modern graphics, modern player models and assets, props, armor and weapons, the modern zone tech, right? But it's vanilla WoW content. Mix up the gameplay a little bit, faster paced combat and stuff, a little bit more streamlined with some of those pain points from Classic or vanilla, as I would say, because it'd be a separate version of that experience. Yeah. But if it was like, hey, we mixed up vanilla WoW a little bit, we added some extra quests and dungeons for the middle of the leveling experience to help you get over the hump, and we added some new stuff in endgame, and we tweaked gameplay in these specific ways, and we added some new stuff to do. Like, I would totally play that. I don't think I would be gunning for Nax raids or something, but I would love to revisit. I've been playing hardcore a little bit, not too much, but like it's been really fun to hop in there and just exist in that world again. So everybody in that side of our community is holding their breath for whatever Classic Plus is going to be.
Right.
And everybody, I think, kind of expects something different out of it. So it's going to be, I don't know. I think Classic Plus is the like time bomb for Friday.
It's because the wild card for sure.
Totally. Yeah, if they don't announce anything, people are going to freak out. And if they announce stuff that isn't popular, that could get ugly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot riding on whatever this is going to be. But I think the cool thing is Blizzard's in a position now where you have vanilla servers forever. You can, if that's what you want to play, you can play that forever. It's there. So it gives them the opportunity to mess with that version of the game and that content and remix it in different ways, because it's not going to replace that. It's going to be a different way to play it. And I think it's really valuable because there's cool stuff in there that needs to be modernized, but there are players who just want the museum piece and they want to go, they want to go visit the museum. So they can kind of have the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it is a space that needs to remain a museum piece, in my opinion, because it's the only way that I really enjoy Classic is doing that. I would be opposed to your let's modernize. That's another thing I'd be opposed to, because I do feel like the nostalgia of the look and feel of Classic is just something that's so important to the appeal to it for me in particular. Like the ability to log into that game for me takes me back to a time when I was way less stressed and over time pressure and feeling like I need to accomplish task A to move to task B to move to task C to move to task D. It was just, I'm just exploring and looking into this general thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they choose to do with Classic Plus, but I would hope that it's something that gives me that same draw of nostalgia without ruining it or spoiling it or making it feel too modern, so that I'm like, I might as well be playing the modern game because I don't have that same escape from the modern game. You know, I want to play World of Warcraft, but I don't want to feel like I'm doing my chores for the day, right? Like it's just a strange thing of when I play modern WoW, I very much feel like, oh, okay, I'm logging in. What's my mission now that I'm logging in, right? There's no longer a game for me when I log in and go, let's just hang out and see what's going on, and I'll hang around here for a bit, and maybe I'll explore that. Like, that's like, the only time I get that is, I guess, during the early leveling times when there isn't anything else to do in the game because other stuff hasn't released yet. But even then, they're moving up those release schedules. We talked about last week how there's a new wing of LFR launching every single week as we lead up to it, except for the last wing, which is going to be 2 weeks out. So there won't be very much lull in those early phases of the game for you to just explore and look around and, you know, and putz about. So I think I need that from the classic stuff, and whatever they choose to do, the only way they're going to draw me to it is if it fits that need. But yeah, let's if we've covered the classic angle and we feel like we've addressed the World of Warcraft enough, we'll move on to the Hearthstone world, which exists within the World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
indeed, it does.
I just want to piggyback off of the point you just made a little bit, because I think that is an important challenge about, like, what does Classic Plus mean? Because I think there are players who just want, like, an expansion for vanilla that wasn't Burning Crusade, right?
Yeah.
And they want more endgame or whatever. And so, like, does that shift the goalposts of that experience that you're talking about too much? And, like, if they lean into that too much, like, how do you make a more robust and modern endgame version of vanilla World of Warcraft without falling into the daily chore pitfalls that you're kind of discussing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think that's a really tough needle to thread, you know, to be able to do that. So, and I don't know, man. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about whatever we're currently calling Classic Plus, whatever we start calling it next Friday, that no matter what version of WoW you cover, you're probably going to be talking about it for a couple weeks, but we'll see. Maybe it's just kind of like a minor thing that's cool and innocuous enough that nobody gets too upset about it, but we are talking about World of Warcraft players, so I have a feeling that it's either going to be too much in the wrong direction or not enough in the right direction or something, and that there's going to be like just firestorms set off about whatever happens. And I don't think Blizzard is too averse to that. I think they want to mix it up and just see, you know, once players start playing it, what happens, because they've been radio silent. They're not getting out in front of this and going, hey guys, like, there's Classic Plus is like a cool idea, but it's not something we're working on. They didn't do that. And they didn't. Hey guys, like, we are working on some cool new ways to engage with classic versions of WoW, and we'll tell you more about it. Like, they've been real, basically cagey and silent about it. So, I'm expecting something big. I mean, Classic is getting, I guess if we can go back to the schedule for 1 second before we move on. I mean, WoW Classic is getting a full panel on Friday for WoW Classic What's Next. And it's an hour long. Like, we have an hour-long panel for What's Next in WoW Classic. Are we talking about Cataclysm for an hour?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like there's going to be some more meat on the bone there. And, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can pencil in the WoW What's Next panel is going to be, you know, expansion 10 and whatever that entails, and we'll get all into that.
Right.
And then, you know, the WoW Classic panel later in the day is going to be Cataclysm and all this other stuff that we have to talk about, whatever it may be. So, I don't know, man. That is the one to watch for sure. I think of everything that we know about BlizzCon so far, whatever comes out of WoW Classic is going to be the headline.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. All right. When we jump into Hearthstone, I know that the Masters tournament was actually happening today, which was fun to watch. I always enjoyed digging in on some Hearthstone watching experience, and I'm really sad that the esports have died down enough that we don't see them as often. But what should we be expecting at BlizzCon? I'm going to go over to Multi, who sort of is like the, you know, I guess our Hearthstone, what's the best term for it? Liaison on the show at the moment? So,
Innkeeper.
Yeah.
There you go. Sounds good. I can't do a good innkeeper impression, though.
I'm not trying to put you on the
dwarf.
Spot for that.
No way.
No.
No. So the interesting thing about Hearthstone right now, of course, is that we already know what the expansion is. It was announced on October 17th, Showdown in the Badlands. There was a bit of a T-shirt leak before that. as well, which also kind of lends some credence to your Deathwing t-shirt idea there, Jason. But
so it's all
anyway,
this also means that Burning Crusade era servers are coming because there's a new Illidan t-shirt. So that's what you do. You watch the t-shirts. So whatever they make t-shirts for, that's what they're selling you.
Yeah, well, it used to be books.
Legion Classic right now. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I believe it. But yeah, so the interesting thing there is not so much that we got the expansion announcement early. It's, in my mind, like, what does this free up room for at BlizzCon? Like, what now, other than obviously they're going to show off the rest of the cards of the set. By the way, the set releases on 11/14, a couple weeks later. And they're going to do a few other things. Obviously, we're going to get some details about Battlegrounds, I'm sure. Maybe some updates, maybe even some major updates to how like lobbies function, potentially. I'm just pulling it out of nowhere. But we could potentially see some big BG stuff.
Are we getting our button to open all of our packs at the same time? Are we getting that button yet?
We already have.
I think we have it now. Yeah, it just came out.
It just came out last week.
Okay. Thank God. Yeah,
they did that as a consolation for killing the Fireside Gathering program, but that's beside the point.
And also tournament mode. They'll just apologize for everything at once. Like, here, you have your mass pack openings. That's all you're getting. Goodbye.
Right. There you go. So yeah, but for me, like, obviously, I think they've freed up some space in the schedule for something new potentially here. I'm just pulling this from a couple different sources. There was an alleged leak, or maybe a pre-release of a new type of card pack that was in the client briefly that they then took away. The card pack is really interesting if you dig around and take a look at it. I won't describe it too much, but it's basically, it has that ribbon on it. The like when you pre-order a pack, it'll be wrapped and then you unwrap it the day that you can. And it says it's coming in November, etc. Interestingly, the image is in a stack of 20. Might not be real, but if it's a thing, what is it that we are buying 20 stacks of necessarily? It's certainly not Mercenaries, I wouldn't think, because they've kind of sunsetted that mode. Could it be a new mode that's Mercenaries-esque in the sense that they're trying to release something that's monetizable, at least better so than Battlegrounds and its cosmetics, that we'd want to sink our teeth into? I mean, we've just got the new mode Twist in there too. The packs don't really look like they're specifically Twist related per se, but I mean, Hearthstone's just doing more in terms of like branching out into different modes, and are also not that worried about splitting up their player base too much either, because the game's doing pretty well overall. And so, yeah, I don't know if it's something new. If I have a just wild, just crazy idea, and this is completely left field, I think that the pack has the coloration, kind of reminds me of Emberthal's scales. I would not think that they're going to do an Evoker class or anything. Any other class release they've had recently has been a set themed around specifically that. But it was just enough that when you look at it, you're like, oh man, I know. So anyway, but the new set is cool. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got a lot of things that we expect as Hearthstone fans. New mechanics built in, a bunch of new cards for each class. Seems like, without covering it too much here necessarily, there's the excavate mechanic where you dig up even legendaries as you like progress throughout the match. You got outlaws where it's the Highlander decks where there aren't any duplicates.
So you're saying that archaeology failed inside of World of Warcraft, so they've now just rolled it into Hearthstone to see if it can succeed there. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yep, and then they'll just drop it at some point. Absolutely. Right. So yeah, you got it. But yeah, and then Quick Draw and a couple other kind of interesting things there. I'm really excited for Excavate overall. Quick Draw is this deal where like as soon as you draw a card for the first time, you can, if you play it that turn, you get some kind of bonus effect. Like maybe it's cheaper, or maybe it does more damage, or that sort of thing. I'm a little hesitant on that one because like one of the worst feelings in Hearthstone is when you lose to a top deck, which is like your opponent draws the card that kills you that turn and wouldn't have won otherwise. That's going to happen more often with these, you know what I mean? So like, so that's kind of a
top
consideration.
Decking and wrecking, baby. That's how I live. So I'm excited for that keyword for sure.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
right off the top and into your face, hopefully.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, so they do have the gameplay demo there, which, I mean, could be the new set, certainly. But when you dig into the fine print, and by the way, they updated the BlizzCon website with a bunch more details as recently as yesterday. A lot of that's what we're pulling from here as we're discussing these things. But they have a bullet point. Come check out Hearthstone's demo area for some fun, new, and exciting gameplay. We're not ready to share what this will entail just yet, but you won't want to miss it. And to me, that doesn't even Scream Battlegrounds updates. That's something new to me. And I think that announcing the expansion early has freed up time for it. What is it? I don't know, but I hope it's exciting enough to like pull me away from standard, because I'd like to try something new. Sure.
So I want to point out that the last time we had an in-person BlizzCon was when they announced BGs. If you remember, it's weird because it doesn't feel like that. BGs is so entrenched 4 years later. It's some people's like main game of all. Like you know what I mean? It's the main thing that they do. And 4 years ago, actually, you were with us, and we had like a mega show for BlizzCon 2019 that year. We had a bunch of guests. We were talking because we knew Diablo 4 was coming and all this stuff. And I said I think one of my predictions that year was Hearthstone Auto Battler, and lo and behold, that was the big reveal for Hearthstone at that show, in addition to the expansion. And I mean, I'm an avid Hearthstone player and BG's player, and I think Mercenaries was such a miss for me, and I was so looking forward to it because I want single player Hearthstone content. I wanted a cool way to engage with that game and that universe that I could take the pressure off. I'm not trying to beat anybody. I'm just kind of collecting stuff and exploring the space, and Mercenaries just unfortunately didn't come together. And I have a feeling that they're not like moving in that kind of single player direction for whatever they're showing off. I'm pretty convinced there's a new gameplay mode coming. Let me put it that way. I don't think it's just a format. We just got a new format with Twist, which has actually been pretty fun.
Right.
I've certainly enjoyed playing some Undertaker Hunter and stuff and just making people upset. I'm really not that bad of a guy on Hearthstone Ladder, I swear. But like, I'm a very predictable player. I don't play any decks that are hard to play. So if you can't beat Undertaker Hunter, then that's either your fault or that's the way the draw went.
It was a golden era of Hearthstone. It really was.
It wasn't like
Truly.
Straight up Nax Undertaker Hunter, but it was close enough that it was really fun.
It's pretty close, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm not expecting new format. I'm expecting straight up new mode, new way to play. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but on the streamer list, the streamer schedule, Disguised Toast is back. They got Disguised Toast doing Hearthstone stuff at BlizzCon, which there was a point in time where Toast was I would keep up with Toast stuff, and I thought that it was pretty entertaining, and so it's kind of cool to see Toast come back and do some Hearthstone stuff. I guess my hope would be, if assuming it's a new mode, which it's fair to say that might be a leap, but what I would hope would be something that doesn't really straight up pull from a collection and is more from the player's collection, I should say, of cards, the way Twist does, and is more of a self-contained thing like BG's. Whatever it kind of ends up looking like. Maybe, I don't know. What would be really cool would be some kind of co-op mode where you could maybe that's the solution to the PvE problem, is like a co-op mode. Because if you guys ever played the old Upper Deck game, the old paper trading card game, they had like dungeon decks, and like one player would be like the dungeon master, and so you'd play as like a Nixia or whatever, and then you'd play against other people with their hero decks and everything. And that'd be kind of tricky probably to jam into Hearthstone's client, just the way the game works. But something like that would be really cool, and maybe would be an opportunity to introduce new cards, like new types of cards. Like you were saying, Multi, about like the card type that showed up, and it's what if it's like 20, raid packs or something, and it's like you need the hero cards for if you're going to be the boss or whatever, like some kind of asymmetrical thing. I don't know. I'm really swinging for the fences here, but I think something like that would be awesome for Hearthstone. BG's just really kind of surprised me. I'd never that was when auto chess and auto chess likes were really blowing up.
Yeah, TFT and everything else. Yeah.
Yep. Like that was right in the era when that stuff was cresting. And I remember the lamentations about like, why doesn't Heroes of the Storm have an auto battler mode? And it ended up coming into Hearthstone, and I had never played a game like that before, and BG's just hooked me instantly. And I haven't played Hearthstone since I got back from vacation, and I probably won't really have time to dig into it before I leave for vacation number 2. But it's something I keep up with. I'll definitely be playing it when I get back. It's part of my gaming diet, right? It's a thing that I do, and it will be for a long time. I'm not expecting any massive BG's updates. Like, like there will be new stuff, and I think they've done a good job of mixing the BG's gameplay up with anomalies and with different stuff that they've done. The quests that came in last summer and stuff like that, just to give you more of a repeatable experience, because you're not just locking in the exact same thing every single time. You have other factors to consider that you can't control, which is part of what makes BGs fun and kind of eases the frustration if you lose. It's like, well, I crapped out, but like I didn't have a good thing, or another guy got really lucky or whatever, so let's queue it up again.
Well, I'll also say that the top 4 thing is another big deal with BGs that feels good. Is as long as you're in the top 4, you won, and you're like, okay, this actually feels better as someone who doesn't always place top 1, right? You can still feel like you've had a rewarding experience for sticking in there for the... Yeah. Sometimes if you get first place, those games can go a long time to actually finish those things up. And
I've definitely had to walk away from lobbies that I was winning because I had to go do something else.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in the exact same boat. I have, there, especially when I was doing Mythic Raid, there were definitely times where I would start a lobby at like an hour and a half before, or an hour and 20 minutes before raid time, and would get to like top 3, and I was like, all right, I gotta go, I gotta get ready, and I can't really finish this. Just like whatever, concede. Like,
it's really funny though when you just let it play. Like you're in first place and you have to go, and you just let it roll. You finish like second or third. Exactly, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I first placed a lobby I had to walk away from when Undead.
That's great.
Like when Undead was still pretty fresh and like kind of OP. Actually, Undead didn't land that high, but like if you got the top end Undead comp, it was pretty hard to beat at release. So yeah, I did top 1 a lobby I had to literally just AFK from before. But I mean, I guess kind of my feeling is like I'm excited about if there's a new gameplay mode for Hearthstone, that's exciting to me and I want to check it out. But I start to have the problem of Hearthstone is a secondary game for me. I play it weekly, right? At least. But how many different modes can I keep up with? I can't play Dragonflight and Classic Plus and Constructed and Battlegrounds and New Mode and Diablo 4. Like, I want to play all the stuff.
Right.
But I only have so much room and I only have so much time. And I think that could be a factor for a player like me where it's like, yo, this new Hearthstone mode looks super cool. I'm going to play 3 games of it ever because it doesn't eclipse Constructed or BGs for me. It's got to meet a pretty high bar now because it's got to get over the BGs hump.
Oh yeah,
for me to really put time into it. I think
that's kind of my sentiments too, there for sure. So, and I mean, what you got to do really is just go all in on all of them. Just basically become Hall D. Plug yourself into the matrix.
Exactly. Just stop sleeping. Just reduce my commitments to the absolute bare minimum. And yeah, it's like you can play Rumble while you're waiting for a queue to pop in one of the other games, or you can play Rumble and BGs at the same time because you can like pause Rumble and then like set up your board and then go back to Rumble while the combat plays out. Yeah. See, you just got to use your time effectively. That's what we're learning.
Yeah. Man, okay. So when it comes to Hearthstone, the new game modes we've talked about, potentials as far as that release would be. I know this is a question for Multi that's a little bit off BlizzCon thing, but if you were going to see an older, I suppose best way to put it, mechanic for a card like magnetic or like, as you talked about, the archaeology one where they're excavating, where you're digging stuff up, what would be an older one that you'd like to see them revisit and bring back? Because Twist is something where they've sort of brought that literal twist back into the game. And they have recycled older ones before. Is there an older one that sort of rings to you that you'd be excited if you saw them bring back around for you?
It's not a keyword per se, but I've always liked the cards that change effects every other turn, and it seems like it's been a little while since we've had those. Like Witchwood had a big feature on it. At the time, it wasn't that strong, but if done right, it could be fun.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like even this set has little. It's not a keyword, but it is a new mechanic. Actually, there's a whole thing where like if you have a 4-cost card in your hand while you play a 4-cost card, you get a bonus effect. Right. That's a thing in this upcoming thing. So. Yeah, I mean, that would be a fun one for me. Always was a fan when it worked, which was rarely, admittedly. But hopefully new devs could breathe some new life into that one potentially.
Exactly. All right. Well, do you guys have anything else for Hearthstone before we move on to Diablos? No? All right. Great.
I don't think so, no. Perfect. I mean, I'm excited for the future of the game. Like, usually the 6-set meta, like we have the new set coming out in a few weeks. 6-set metas are not my favorite. I like the smaller card pool and the lower power. So I'll probably tone down a little bit of my constructed play for the last season of the year. But, I mean, I don't know. I know people run hot and cold with Hearthstone, and I know a lot of people have kind of just totally dipped out of it. But
look, I got my issues with it.
I have fun with
all
it.
right. I enjoy the game. I think that their model for the cost to stay up to date and playing is very difficult to maintain. That's just me. That's just where I'm at. I think they're cosmetics, and I think staying up to date on cards is just too expensive for a casual player to be able to actually do and enjoy and stay relevant in the game. It's my opinion. And I'd be happy, Multi, to come on your show and talk about it anytime.
Okay. We'll have you.
Anytime you want a hostile witness to come on about Hearthstone, I'm happy to come on and go,
Please
I love
do.
this game. Stop ruining this game with your store.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the nature of the beast with CCGs in some ways, and it's cheaper than trying to be competitive at like MTG paper or whatever. But it's still, I mean, it's still money. I do think they've done like a decent job with the Tavern Pass. Like that actually ends up being a pretty good value in terms of what you get out of it, and in terms of gold, and you can do a lot of stuff with gold. So, I mean, your point is well taken, and I think that is a thing that people who aren't like really loving the game, like it's a really quick out, because it's like, well, do I really want to spend money on the next set, like to that degree, to get enough cards to make a new deck? Like, I don't really want to. I'm just going to stop playing. I'm just going to play BGs because it's free. And then, that runs hot and cold. But, I don't know. For me, like I do have these moments where I'm like, why did I pay money for this set to build these decks that I'm just losing with? But, the meta is what it is. And there's stuff that is good, that I like, that is good sometimes. And that feels really good. It's like, oh yeah. It's just those moments tend to be ephemeral, and that can be frustrating too.
I'm just saying, when you have the majority of people who I speak with inside of my sort of circle of people who play Hearthstone all have the same consideration every time new expansions come out of, all right, are we just quitting, or are we spending $90 on cards? What are we choosing to do here? Which one, right? Because in Canada, it is $90. Yeah, right. It's $100 for that 80 pack. That's what that is. And you're like, okay, if every 6 months I need to invest this $100 to feel like I can really stay relevant, yeah, that is one of those things. So I
usually do both bundles, so I'm putting out.
Oh my god!
I'm putting out like 170 USD for both bundles and the Tavern Pass, and then I'll buy like the BG's Pass. I mean, I feel like it's like the passes are good value for your money.
Agreed.
If you're playing a game.
Well, and passes in general are a great aspect in a lot of games. It's and some games do them poorly and some games do them well, and the Hearthstone one launched pretty bad, but they made it much better really fast. So I do, I feel like the passes are worth the money, and it's the pre-order bundles that I always kind of end up trying to talk myself out of, and then I don't end up doing it. But it's it's tough, but it's just, I don't know, in some ways it is the nature of the CCG, and in other ways it's like, well, they could adjust. I think a big thing would be if they adjusted the dust model, because then people who have invested in the game could dust cards and get more of a return back out of that to flip them for new stuff that they want to play.
Well, not just that. Good. I was just going to say, I mean, there's really kind of a through line with all of these games. Like, if there was a time to announce any sort of monetization changes to the WoW sub, to this, to the way that the battle passes in Overwatch 2 function, that sort of thing. I don't know if we'll obviously get fully into that stuff right now, but this would be the time to have changes like a revamp of the dust system or the ladder system or a bunch of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say, I know we're sidebarring a bit here, but the dust thing, to me, I have gone in and dusted like an entire class of cards because I just wanted to be able to make a deck. And after buying 80 packs, I still couldn't make the thing I wanted to make. So I went, you know what? I never play Demon Hunter. I'm destroying all of my Demon Hunter cards. There, now I can actually make the deck I want to make. That is not something I think you should have your player base doing to be able to play a deck in their game. And it's the dust system, it's the expense of the cards, it's all of that. Anyways, that's tangent. We'll dig in here to Diablo. Let's go to Diablo. All right, so Diablo 4.
Wait, where did you Rumble?
So I guess we'll do. Let's dig into Rumble. Rumble is obviously, as Jason mentioned at the top of the show, a Clash of Clans style game that Blizzard has put out that is based inside the Warcraft universe that people can dive into and play. It is essentially a spend currency to put down little fun toys that run across a pathway that has defenses typically in it against opposing toys, and you try and destroy your way through. It's a very fun mobile game. It's something you can get into very easily. I will say there's some improvements that I would like to see, but let's let Malty dive in and actually tell us a little bit more about Rumble, since he's our resident liaison on that.
Yeah, so Rumble, to your point, is pretty fun, honestly. Like, it's honestly, between it and Hearthstone, I play Rumble more than I do Hearthstone these days.
It's also cheaper.
And you do it, it's cheaper, absolutely. And you can do it in small spurts. Like, I think you guys mentioned it earlier, but the fact that you can just even play it, especially in PvE, right? You could pause it. You can lock your phone, stick it in your pocket, finish up whatever you're doing, pull it back out, unlock it, finish the game that you're in. Like, you don't get that in Hearthstone or some of these other experiences, right? So I like that feature about it, because I got a lot going on these days as well. But yeah, it's not what you'd expect, I think, if you're just looking at the marketing so far. Like, if all you've seen is that initial video, which, by the way, was a year ago, and since then, I know, Jason, you and I have talked offline about how just weird the marketing's kind of been for the game, and that there was this giant dearth of information for so long. And then even now, I got to think there's some people out there that are thinking, what even is this game? Like, I guess I got the minis from the Rumble machine in Azeroth now in WoW, but like, what am I even doing with these? You know what I mean? So I think that's what they're going to do with BlizzCon quite a bit, is just kind of reset the expectations of, hey, this is, to your point, a tower offense game, not tower defense. I mean, if you do want a comparison, obviously Clash Royale is the best one right now. You kind of get the same feeling of just that there's a timer with gold and you pay X amount to get the right minis going down the right lanes. You can kind of get the feel of that. I will say, like, if this is a game that is built on the house that was Clash Royale, it has a lot more going on. Like they built an entire deck in the back. You know, there's a second floor now. There's a basement. You know, it's really a lot more fleshed out in that sense, and it's a lot of fun. So there's there are 5 families that you go through. So it's basically Alliance, Horde, Undead, Blackrock, and Beast. And the game really is about building up each of these. So I got a couple quick tips that I want to throw out here at some point on the overall game, see if you guys agree with me. But a lot of it is really like, you can kind of main one and say to yourself, I want to be Baron Rivendare Undead. That's my thing. But keep focusing on the other ones too, because you can just you can push into it, certainly when you unlock Heroic and everything, much easier that way, for sure. But yeah, no, it's got a lot of features, like guilds right out the gate. I mean, it's only 15 people in the guild, but you actually do these seasonal quests together by finishing up your Arclight Surges. You can have that camaraderie there. There's already a community forming in the Warcraft Rumble Discord on this sort of thing as well, which is where I found the guild that I'm in. And I mean, raids. That's if there's going to be a big announcement for this BlizzCon for it, it is going to be a discussion of the raids. There was a group interview that took place a couple weeks back now. One of those ones that, like, they don't televise, but they have press in to just kind of talk through what's coming up. And yeah, I guess we're potentially looking at Molten Core from that, which makes sense. Some co-op raiding in Molten Core. And then, and to that end, I would say, so we did get some new news that actually just released recently as yesterday. They announced a new leader. Sylvanas is going to be joining the Undead family. And notably, so in each of the families, there are, so like Horde, Alliance, and Beast already had 3 leaders kind of pre-built into the client. So Sylvanas now makes the 3rd leader for the Undead, which means there's still a spot in that Blackrock set. So it would make sense to me thematically if you had Ragnaros, maybe you unlock him by finishing the Molten Core raid, potentially.
Okay.
Round out the Blackrock and give 3 leaders per family by the end of this. I don't think we're going to see anything crazy like totally new families or anything this BlizzCon. That seems like maybe a BlizzCon 2014 thing, potentially. Because when you get into the game, you start to realize that, like, the core of the game is built around building up these 5 families. Like, there's an entire track for working with your guildies. And certainly when you get into Heroic, it's about clearing the maps with each of the families to get another sigil and that sort of thing. But yeah, it is a lot of fun. I will say, I mean, there's a lot of depth to it. It is simple to get into, certainly. Like, you can get the concept of it right away. But things like, I want to put my Kobold Miner at the back of the deploy zone so that it gets to the gold when it's at 2 gold as opposed to 1, so that it can mine a little bit, and maybe it'll turn back for the 3rd one. Like, there's little nuances in there that you really just kind of pick up from just playing it and logging the time. So
Yeah, so one of the features in the game, and I know we're sort of not just focused on the BlizzCon stuff and what's going to be expected at BlizzCon, but I do want to introduce more people to this because this game launches at BlizzCon. It comes out on Friday, inside of US. It's already out here in Canada. It's already out in a lot of other places around the world, but the official launch for its home country, if you will, is happening on Friday. So there's mechanics like a shop, because everyone would expect any kind of mobile game to have some sort of shop to maintain their revenue stream and make development actually worthwhile. Their shop so far has been quite reasonable as far as what it does. It does a lot of the promotional things that you'd expect, where you have progressed a certain distance, so you now get access to a limited time pack that has, higher value than your average pack would have, that you can purchase to, as Jason mentioned, just fast track your potential pace. It doesn't necessarily give you access to anything that you wouldn't normally have access to just playing the game. It just fast tracks your progression. Similarly, when you hit, I think it's level 10 or something like that in it, you get access to essentially almost a full version of the game is how I would sort of call it. It's a pack that increases permanently on your account the amount of gold you receive and the amount of experience you receive just for playing games. And that's a $25 pack for me here in Canada. And that's just a pack that basically you'd purchase if you thought, hey, you know what? I've enjoyed this so far. I'm going to put more than a couple of days playing this. I'm interested in it, and I'm going to invest $25 into this. And that means that I'm essentially now buying the game is kind of the way that I see that pack, versus just playing it for free. There is I
would agree with that. I think it's a good way to put it. Yeah. And I
Totally.
did buy into that in the beta after the wipe, because it's like, I'm playing this. They deserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have I think it's like, what is it, 20 US or 15 US or whatever?
I think it was 20.
I have it. Yeah, it's worth it. I'm putting the time in. I'm going to put more time in. Let me get the most out of my time, and whatever.
Yeah.
They earned this money from me. I played the game.
Yeah. So it's that's how their kind of monetary store works, is basically just fast tracking yourself if that's something you want to do. The game itself isn't like Facebook old school games that were like, hey, guess what? This thing's going to take 4 days to reset unless you purchase this currency with real money that you can spend to make this reset now instantly. Like, it doesn't do those sorts of things.
No.
But it does, in fact, give you currency that you could choose to progress a little faster. Now, the in-game currency that you're actually spending, if you're trying to unlock or upgrade your current minis that you have, you spend in something called the grid, which is still something that's kind of boggling me a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about the grid multi?
Yeah, so it's the only kind of like gotcha feature within this, just in the sense that you are offered a 3x3 grid of options at any given time in the store for like new minis to purchase and that kind of thing. There's some little features in there where like sometimes it matters what row something's on, because you can get like bonus experience for certain purchases and that kind of thing, which is really the only reason that you would use. There's a move feature where like you can move and shift around individual boxes in this. I want to just break in here for a second to clarify, Multi, because the grid is, we're talking about gold purchases. We're not talking about cash.
Yeah.
When you say buy stuff, whatever. Yeah. Like, I don't know if that is clear to everybody, if everybody knows what we're talking about. Like, the grid, the thing that you buy minis and upgrades from, is gold. It's in-game currency.
Correct.
Yes.
Which you can earn by playing the game, and they're not like super stingy about distributing.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, right. And I mean, you could purchase gold with money, as we mentioned, of course, but totally you can just grind it out in the game there as well. So yeah, I will say the only thing that's a nuance about this grid is that as you purchase things, it then causes the next row to drop down. So you're given new offerings, essentially. And so sometimes, like, if you buy something on the bottom row, you get a couple extra rows up above. Eventually, like, as you progress your minis and upgrade them, so you're wanting to, like, essentially, if you buy 3 of any given one at the just normal baseline, you then get an uncommon one where you get to buff it up, get a talent for it, and that sort of thing. And at that point, the talents actually start showing up in the grid here as well. So there's kind of a game of like, which of these do I really want to actually invest? It's 250 gold for a talent versus 90 for a mini. So like, you're kind of thinking through, where am I going to put this gold to actually like push either my main army or that sort of thing. So it's kind of a mini game in itself, in that, like, you know, how many times there's even a big red button where you can re-roll the entire thing. And that can be strategic, because certain weeks, like, certain family leaders show up like, hey, I just want to be all undead and I got to get Blood Mage Thalnos up there. Re-roll a bunch on Undead Week, see what you get. You know what I mean? So
That's what I'm doing right now, because I got an Alliance week starting up at midnight. So I banked my gold and I banked my big red buttons, and I'm going to try to max out some dudes this week. So yeah, there's like a macro level of managing your army, and then there's the micro level inside the game.
Yeah, so the grid itself, when you purchase anything inside one particular row, that row resets, correct? That's how that row works?
It drops it down. So like it's like the whole thing's like rotating, so you get a new row in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another purpose you could consider the move for, is shifting something out of a row before you buy something else in that row, if you want to buy both of them, because you would then lose options to buy the second thing in that row.
Yeah, true. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't buy two things that are on a horizontal row together. So yeah, you could. It's only like 5 gold to reposition something, so you could do that as well. If it's like, oh, I need these two things, let me rearrange it. Like, there is like actual depth to the acquisition of minis and with gold and upgrading them and stuff. It's kind of I think there's more depth to it than I really thought there was going to be at first, especially with positioning and timing and stuff like that. I mean, it's a strategy game. Like it just is, for sure.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to explore while we were talking about that before we hopped into anything more about Rumble, was just the actual mechanics of it themselves, since people are going to be diving into it and checking it out. Otherwise, I would say most of the game has a really good, strong tutorial from what I've run into so far, as far as explaining how things work and, guiding you along the path of, what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be doing it. I will say that it does not, as much as it forces you into making certain decisions, there's going to be times in tutorial parts where they're like, hey, upgrade this hero. And you're like, well, but I want to use this other one. Can I just choose to? No, you can't. You have to actually spend coin, not real money, but gold, upgrading this particular hero for this part of the tutorial. That's fine. It is negligible. You will not notice any real difference with that. Don't get stressed over it. The tutorial stuff is there to, help you learn how the game works, and it's fine. So don't stress too much. As far as Rumble at BlizzCon goes, though, I think we're going to have a bunch of content creators coming together to do a bunch of Rumble. I think that is absolutely something we're going to see there. I agree with you that I think it's too early to see another hero, another like big actual, like not hero, but another, what's the way flavor?
Family.
That's it. Family.
Yeah.
See another family come in. I would like to see like Consortium at some point or something like that as a family way down the line. If I had to pick a family I wanted to see.
Cool. That'd be way out of left field. That would be cool for Rumble too. It would be very flavorful.
Yeah. So I would love to see something like that come in, or the Void would be another really fun one to see come in at some point. So I think they have a lot of options as far as what they can do with families. But I think you're right. I think this is just going to be a showcase. I don't think they're going to announce anything big, super crazy. I think they're going to give us the track for what they're expected to do update-wise. Probably not be too clear as to what those updates are going to be. But let us know that stuff's coming in 6 months or 8 months or whatever it is. And then I think it's just going to be... that's the other thing I thought. I don't know if you can get this already in the game. You guys can clarify this for me or not. I think we're going to get different skins for the individual toys. Like we have the chrome ones inside World of Warcraft for the Equestrian that went in there. I think we will see different skins that you can apply to your minis so that you can have, an undead looking Sylvanas and a not undead looking Sylvanas and you can choose to do that sort of thing. I think that's something we'll probably see happen with the game too. So that's my prediction.
Emotes.
Yeah, we know
emotes was a recent build as well. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, we had a patch so like last week or whatever. Emotes came in. We know that they're doing promos. Like if you pre-register and stuff, you get some skins for your Kobold Miner and for your bases, but they're not implemented yet, so we don't really have a feel for how that's going to look. But I do think you're on the right track that they'll probably talk more about what cosmetics we can kind of expect. And I would imagine that the cosmetics will by and large be like cash purchases because that's how that works. So, but they'll probably do promos for some of them and stuff. I guess like what I'm interested in, like we got that news last night about Sylvanas coming in as the new leader, which I mean, I feel like in what is a very small little world of people who are as stoked on Rumble as Multi and I are, like I feel like that was huge news, right? Like new leader, like she's got really cool new abilities and talents, and is going to be a different kind of play style, obviously for undead armies. But also, I was just stoked at like, okay, we know season 1 starting this week, and you can start earning progress towards a Sylvanas unit, and we know that because right now, like I guess as up until right now, the beta season rewarded Corehounds, right? And you get the Corehounds unit if you're in a guild that filled up the track enough to unlock Corehounds, and you just get that. And I assume that in season 1, core hounds will be in the grid pool, so you can just get core hounds with gold. It sounds like Sylvanas will not be on the grid until season 2, so you have to do the guild stuff and progress your guild track together just by doing PvP, doing surges, doing all different stuff. You fill up the bar, everybody unlocks Sylvanas together. But so I'm interested to hear what the cadence for seasons is going to be like. I kind of hope they're not monthly. I feel like it's a little too fast, but I like the precedent that like we're getting a leader from a seasonal reward. Like there could be some really cool stuff they have lined up for the season rewards. So I'm very excited to hear more about like what the ongoing support is going to look like. You got me. Like you got me on the hook. I love the game. I'm having a great time with it, and I want to level up all my minis and build up my armies and grind my dungeons and do all that stuff. But I guess that's a big thing for me is like, what does year 1 of Rumble look like in terms of seasonal cadence and support, and like what can we expect in terms of rewards from it? Like I don't think adding more than like one new mini to the pool at a time is probably a good idea as people are like really learning the game. And I would say my only concern about the game for people checking it out is the learning curve might be a little bit higher than people are expecting. It's a cutesy looking game. It's a phone game. You think you're just going to go in there and crush, and like, they toned it down since the earlier beta, but it's kind of hard. Like no lie. Like there are missions I get stuck on that you get kind of brick walled in progression sometimes until you can grind up beyond a certain point, or a light bulb goes on in your brain and you approach something a different way. And I think that might be a little frustrating to people. So I do have some minor concerns about that. I think the game might be a little too hard as you initially progress through the quests. The heroic stuff, you expect it to be hard, right? So I feel like once people get that far, they'll be like, I get it. I'm supposed to solve this puzzle. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see like what the mainstream reaction is to kind of where they landed with the difficulty curve.
I would agree entirely with the difficulty curve that you're talking about, because I know someone who tried the game, played the first mission, beat it, played the second mission, lost horribly, and went, this game just isn't for me. Immediately.
And there will be those people, regardless.
For sure.
But
I feel like, and the reason why I said this game's just not for me wasn't because they didn't enjoy the graphics or the gameplay. It was because of the difficulty. They just literally said, this is too hard. If the second mission I'm ever going to expose myself to destroys me entirely, this is just like you have to consider this is someone coming into the game who has no experience at all, and the tutorial has only told them like bare minimum things, right? And so you're like, okay, if this is the early exposure, I can understand someone going, oof, okay, this is going to require way more brain power than I want it to for a mobile game. And that is entirely valid as an opinion, but I'm with you, Jason, that could very much be a problem that we're looking at. So yeah. All right, Multi, anything from you on Rumble?
Not outside what I mentioned, I think. Just amped for it.
Great. Okay, we'll do a quick dive through on Diablo stuff, and then we will wrap things up. So Diablo, we're getting season 3, obviously. We expect to get that all up and running for folks. We currently have the vampire stuff going on right now, which a lot of people are enjoying. I haven't sort of had a dive into it yet, but we expect to hear them talk about season 3. We expect to hear them talk about a new class at some point. I think a lot of people would be excited for hearing about that, which would most likely land with an expansion. So we'll have to see what they choose to do as far as telling another storyline. I don't think an expansion will continue the current storyline. I think an expansion will tell a different story because I feel like they kind of wrapped up the Lilith stuff. And what they're telling now is like what they did with the first season about the plague and exploring the plague things. I think that they did a really good job with that. Now they're exploring the vampire aspect and doing vampire stuff. I think season 3 will do a similar thing. I think an expansion will go, okay, here's a different storyline we want to tell. Your character's involved in it, but it doesn't have to do with Lilith. It might have to do with Primevals, but it'll be a very different sidebar kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to see what they have coming. I think they are in a very weird place at the moment where they very much are experiencing what they did with Diablo 3, where a season launches and they have a huge swing of population play the game for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then the population dives after that period of time, is what it feels like. And so I think they need to find a way to make the gameplay loop feel more valuable to players. And I feel like a lot of that was something that Diablo 3 suffered with. So I'm hoping to hear that is something that's very present in their minds, and they're trying to find a way around that sort of thing.
And I kind of question whether it is to some degree, only for one reason. And I mean, I liked Diablo 4 initial playthrough. I'm one of the players that kind of dropped off season 1, and I've dabbled in season 2 a little bit too. So, but I will say what's got me worried is just the fact that like they don't have a main stage panel the first day, and really the only first like major update is that campfire chat on Saturday from 2:30 to 3:30.
Yeah.
So like I just don't know what that says about. I mean, I agree. They've even announced that they're expecting new expansions per year, but like, where are we going with that? If we're not hearing about it too much until the Saturday, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah. That's my main concern here.
I get that.
Well,
I get that.
I think, just to chime in on that, sure. I'm looking at the schedule, and, I don't think opening ceremony is going to be 2.5 hours. So it's entirely possible that there has to be something between opening ceremony and the WoW panel, right? I would imagine opening ceremony will be an hour and a half, and then there'll be an hour block there for something else before the WoW What's Next panel, which could be an entirely new game. It could be, it's something we don't know what it is at all, and we're going to find out about it at opening ceremony, and then we're going to do an hour on it. It could be Diablo 4 Expansion 1. They publicly are on record as saying they plan to do yearly expansions for Diablo 4. Yeah. And so, I would imagine you announce the expansion at BlizzCon. The weird thing is, like, why not put that on the schedule? Why isn't Diablo What's Next just at 12:30? Is that too scandalous to put on the schedule this early? I don't know, but I guess that would be my expectation. Would be, we're going to hear about whatever season 3 is, because we're well into season 2 now. It's been out for a couple weeks, and we know when it ends, so we have a target date for when season 3 would be starting. Right. So you have to think they're going to give us the overview of season 3. And if you want to sell us an expansion in 2024, then this is the BlizzCon to tell us about it at. So I think Diablo 4 could be a likely candidate to fill that gap. If it could be something from totally out of left field, but but it is weird that you don't just tell us that that's what's on deck first. I've enjoyed playing through Diablo 4. I haven't season 1 I barely played. Season 2, obviously I was in Japan for the launch of it and everything. I did make a character and I'm dinking around with it a little bit, but Diablo 4 doesn't have its hooks in me like middle stage Diablo 3 did. I feel like it's got a ways to go, but it's not like irredeemable for me as a player. So I'm excited to hear what they're going to do. I would imagine that, like a new class would come in with an expansion or whatever. I would love to see like Monk come back or something. But, there's some classic Diablo archetypes that we don't have. Yeah. So, there's some opportunity there for sure. So I don't know. That's my expectation. And we'll see how wrong I end up being. But it is weird. Like Diablo has a haul. It has all these games that are live and being supported. And it has like nothing on the main stage schedule. It has that one panel on the second day. This is their kind of front and center franchise right now. So I don't know. I feel like we got to be getting some other Diablo 4 juice here.
I hear you. It's front and center until Friday when they announce the next WoW thing, and then it takes a backseat instantly. And right? Then like that's the one weird thing about BlizzCon is you're like, man, the biggest thing that's happening right now around the game is about this particular title.
Well, yeah.
And then you're
BlizzCon is like BlizzCon's the World of Warcraft show, right?
Yeah,
like it started because of World of Warcraft, and it's always the headline at World of Warcraft. But Diablo 4 is like a much bigger deal in the overall industry right now.
Yeah.
Well, also, we haven't really discussed the Microsoft factor, and like, I don't know, and maybe I'm gonna guess that Phil Spencer's probably gonna be on video or something at BlizzCon, and I know that like Diablo 4 is a thing Microsoft really wanted to get their hands on, so I don't know, maybe there could be some more stuff about like the Microsoft acquisition and Xbox integration, and does that affect stuff like this, and what does it mean for a game like Diablo 4, which is just getting kind of its sea legs as like a live service kind of thing. It's a ship apparently, so we've launched it, it's sailing away, and how does like the Xbox platform play into that? All that stuff could be also part of the show.
Yeah, agreed. It could be. We're not going to touch too much on Diablo Immortal, other than we're moving into season 20, I think is the next thing on the agenda. So it is definitely something that a lot of folks are still heavily playing. My friend group moved out of it. I only play these sorts of games with people that I like to hang out with and whatnot. I played the crap out of Diablo Immortal for the first 2 months that it was out, and then just went, okay, I've got to step away from this before I start spending real money on this game. Yep. So yeah, that was kind of where I was at. as far as the legacy stuff goes for Diablo, I don't think we'll actually even touch on that. I think they'll keep the show very focused on their current titles. I don't think we'll hear much about Diablo 2 unless someone's asking questions of devs inside bars about things like that. And as you mentioned, Jason, we're getting that final season of Diablo 3. So there'll probably be a little bit of talk about that, not during any panels, but I imagine people just having conversations on the floor, getting some more information after the convention actually gets out there.
Yeah, I would like to. I guess what I would like would be for them to kind of put a bow on Diablo 3 and just say, okay, like it's been a great run, 11 years or whatever of the live service, and all the support, all the changes over the years, all the season roles, and then just like, okay, so here's the end state. You have the altar from the previous season and everything. That's like a permanent part of the game now or whatever. They said they were going to do that. What does Diablo 3 look like 5 years from now? Obviously they're not going to do like big new content, but are they going to do like are they going to revisit old seasonal concepts? Is the whole season just going to go away? And what does it look like ongoing as it moves into, being a legacy title in that space? I love Diablo 3. It's one of my favorite games ever, I think. With the amount of time I put into it, I have to say that, right? And yeah, I had a great run with it. I don't know that I'm totally done with it. I could maybe be interested in checking it out again once it goes in the kind of, maintenance mode and with all the features ever in one build. Like, yeah, I would be interested to hear about it.
Yeah. Overwatch 2. I mean, we're going to get new heroes. They're going to do a new map at some point. We got the World Cup taking place at BlizzCon. I'm not going to dive too deep into this topic because it's just not a topic where any of us currently live as far as the game goes. But for folks who are looking, you're going to get announcements about it. They have 2 halls, one just for esports, one just for their actual game. They are attempting to push this title as one of their major titles. I have this overwhelming feeling like it's going to go the way of HOTS at some point. Overwatch is going to fall into this. We're just pulling our support out of things gradually. And then one day it's like, yeah, we're no longer going to be focused on this title as much. It isn't getting the response from what I've seen that it needs to from the people that I'm around to maintain it as a mainstream title for a Blizzard game. We'll see what they can do to try and save that. We'll have to find out.
I think they would need to just do something new with the IP to breathe new life into it. And that's kind of where I alluded to earlier. I won't get into it too much because I don't really have any grand theories on this either because I've kind of fallen out of Overwatch as well. But, I mean, if there's a place for sleight of hand, do they really need an entire hall to announce a new hero and details about Season 8? I don't think so. Also, notably, they are the second panel after regular World of Warcraft retail on day one, which seems like a notable. They're even sandwiched between them and Classic. So that tells me that maybe there's something exciting and hype coming that we just don't even know about. But that's all I got. I have no other grand theories of what it could be.
No, I mean, I think they've just lost so much trust with the player base, with the business model shift and everything to Overwatch 2. Like I mean, I agree. Either doing something different with the IP or just like a huge rebrand and rethinking the business model. Maybe the Microsoft acquisition kind of greases those wheels because Microsoft has different financial stakes than Activision Blizzard did. And so maybe they're amenable to changing up the business model for Overwatch 2. I think it needs it. You might need to just go straight to Overwatch 3 and just say, you know what, like we had some challenges. Maybe. I hope you understand. We want to make this game cool, and so we're giving it another fresh start. That might be necessary. And also pulling the rug out from under the PvE thing that they announced in 2019. Like, yes, there were story missions. They were also very expensive. The whole thing with like specking out your heroes, they just killed. And I think that's the part that people were really looking forward to the most. So that was a real dagger. The game was already like not everybody's favorite, and then they pulled that rug, and it was like, well, what are players hanging on to here? So I don't know. I feel bad for people who really like love and care about those games and that universe. I'm not really one of them. I'm a tourist at best. But I don't know, like the World Cup's happening. Is Overwatch League done? I don't think they've said officially one way or the other, but it seems like it's done. Is this some kind of weird swan song for Overwatch 2? It might be. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the game needs a big injection of the right kinds of changes to all elements of it. 5v5 has been unpopular. The business model's unpopular. The lack of features and promised features is unpopular. the lack of attention on the esport has resulted in changing realities for that whole ecosystem. A lot of missteps with that entire franchise in the last 4 years. So I don't know, man. I guess the only thing I would say is I'm glad I don't have much of a stake in it emotionally or otherwise, because it seems like a real roller coaster. Yeah. I feel bad for anybody who's like, man, I hope they turn it around with Overwatch 2, because it's just not that writing doesn't seem like it's on the wall to me.
The only thing that would have done it for me is giving us the single player experience that they initially had sort of talked about, and having that kind of campaign feel for the game that would have drawn me in for the campaign. I don't know if it would have had the staying power that they needed to keep me interested, but I think if they went that route of making the world a world, and you can live in it, and you can have housing, and you can decorate it, and you can go out and do missions, and you can meet up with your friends, and like that would just be more of an interesting thing for me as far as this game goes. But what they have right now doesn't speak to that, so we'll have to wait and see what they choose to do, because you're right, Multi, they did give it a pretty, front-facing spot, and whether that's them trying to go, please, this is still relevant, pay attention to it, or whether it's going, hey, we have a big announcement to make. We will have to wait and see how that actually goes. All right, that's going to wrap up our episode. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to our patrons. You can find our Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Alianas, Arajian, Celian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, and Vespin. Thank you so much for all that you give towards our show, and all of our patrons give towards our show. We appreciate you very much for all the incredible support. And looking forward to seeing our listeners and our patrons at BlizzCon. For those of you who are going, we are trying to organize a get-together on Thursday evening, potentially at a local bowling alley that's nearby. So we'll get details for that out in our Discord. So if you haven't hopped into our Discord over at thestartingzone.com/Discord, be sure you do, because then we can guide you as to where you can find us during this and how to get there. And, we can hang out for a bit, which would be nice. You can see people there.
No, for sure. I mean, that's why I'm going to BlizzCon, is to see people. So if you are a listener and you want to hang out with me at BlizzCon, check the Discord, and we'll try to stay in touch about where we're posting up and hanging out and stuff. So definitely come say hi. That's the fun of the show, is getting to see people that you would only see at BlizzCon. That's the magic. So I can't wait to be back out there. I mean, Spencer, we haven't seen each other in person in 4 years, so it'd be great to see you out there, man. Yep. And everybody, we got actually, at first I was like, I don't know, the crew's not looking too good this year, but hey, Ted's coming out, and Tally's coming out, and a bunch of people that we like to hang out with there are still going to be there after all these years. So that's awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to the show. I can't believe an in-person BlizzCon's happening again. It feels surreal after the last 4 years that we're on the verge of it. So I'm super excited, and whatever's coming, I'm going to play it. I'm excited about the future of a bunch of these games. So I'm totally tuned up. I didn't know if I would be or not, but I am for sure tuned up.
You're getting there. Excellent. For
totally.
me. For me, it's once I get over my anxiety of travel, I will then have the excitement of BlizzCon, which will happen once I arrive at my hotel and put my bags down. Right. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing.
After the last 2 weeks, I'm now just like, I only have to fly 6 hours now.
That's right. Now it's easy for you.
It's nothing.
This is
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Totally. I was just going to say, for me, it's like the last 4 years feel like 10. Mm-hmm. So because reasons. So it's good to be getting back to something like this.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 603 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for The Starting Zone podcast. If you want to reach out to the show and ask us some questions, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone. Or, as I said, you can join our Discord at thestartingzone.com/Discord. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. You can check out all the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and that kind of fun stuff. And Multi, we'll start with you. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
So social media, I'm just on Blue Sky right now, actually, at Multizord. That's right. But I mean, really, if you want to chat with me, just hop in the Starting Zone Discord. It's probably the Discord I chat in the most these days anyway. So, but yeah, the podcast is Hearth Casual, again, at Hearth Casual on Twitter or X or whatever, if you want to check out some more Hearthstone stuff from us.
Cool. I noticed you moved off of the Twitter space, and yes, we do appreciate you communicating plenty inside of the Starting Zone Discord. More than welcome to do that. Jason, where can we find you on the interwebs?
The best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, still doing that thing. I am not subscribing to Premium Plus, though.
Okay.
I'm not giving you $16 a month to use Twitter. I could play World of Warcraft for less than that.
What if they give you 5 Hearthstone packs with the subscription every month?
All right, I'd have to
So I'm back.
You might have me. You can also find my video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. They're going to be quiet for another week at least because I'm going to be gone. But hopefully, ISP willing, I'll be streaming some Guardians of the Dream stuff when I get back from BlizzCon. So that'll be cool. But yeah, come say hi on any of those platforms.
Great. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or over on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself and special guest Multizord, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.